In these series of videos, we're going to talk about scoring milestones, which can be big hurdles in the game, breaking 100, 90, 80. They're also very memorable. I still remember where I was when I broke 90 and 80 for the first time. I was a junior golfer, and it was at Tucson National outside Arizona. It was the same junior golf tournament in back-to-back years that I broke those big milestones. In this video in particular, we're going to talk about breaking 100. And the content that I've looked at online, it can place a lot of fear in you as a golfer. It talks about hitting short irons just down the fairway, keeping the ball in front of you, avoiding penalty areas. From my standpoint, we cannot be playing golf from a state of fear and doubt. We need to be on the offensive. The analogy I think of is if you're trying to be a great baseball player, you can't go up to home plate and bunt every single time. We have to learn to take a pitch and make a swing. And it's the same thing in golf. We're going to talk about some simple things that you could focus on to help you stay on the offensive and help break that 100 for the first time. You may be asking yourself if I'm telling you to play golf like Phil Mickelson, who's one of the most aggressive players in history. And I'm not telling you to do that. Obviously, we need to try to avoid penalty areas and out of bounds through good decision making on our targets. But inevitably, you're going to hit the ball in places that you don't want it to go. And what's important is that you're able to move on from those. I can think of multiple tournaments that I've won in my career, hitting the ball in penalty areas, hitting the ball out of bounds. And really what pushes you forward is using the right mindset to push that in the past and use our mistakes to help us to fuel moving forward. Another great example that comes to mind is Jack Nicklaus when he won the 1986 Masters at 46 years old. He birdied 7 of his last 10 holes to win that storied championship. But when asked afterwards what the turning point in the round for him was, he said it was his 3-putt bogey on the 12th hole and his reactions to that. We all are going to make mistakes, and in your quest to break these big scoring milestones in the game, you will as well. We have to find ways to use them as fuel, leave them behind you, and move forward and employ the correct mindset. 2 things that are going to enable you to break that 100 score milestone. The first one is club selection. I've played in dozens of pro-ams in my career and with many golfers that have slightly higher handicaps, and I see it constantly. Typically, those players are going to hit 1 in 5 shots, they're going to pick the wrong club. That's 20% of their shots, they're picking the wrong club. So for example, if you're out there and you're shooting 110, if you just start picking the correct clubs, you're going to save 20% of your strokes, which is 22 shots. All of a sudden, you've not only broken the 100 milestone, but then you're breaking 90 as well. So club selection is vital for you to break 100. To be able to pick the right clubs, we have to know how far the golf ball is going, which is the most difficult part. I really encourage you, the best way to do this is book some time at a hitting bay that has a TrackMan and spend about an hour and just understand how far does each of my club go when I make a full swing. And from there, you're going to learn that typically your irons are going to space out about 12 yards apart from each other. And write those numbers down and take them with you once you leave there. And moving forward, you'll want to be able to work on hitting in between those. But for right now, when we're focused on breaking 100, just think about those full swings. How far does the ball go? You have them written down. You can take them with you, put them in your golf bag. But you need to understand what you get on the golf course. You're not in this perfect environment that you were inside, air conditioned, perfectly 72 degrees. So say your 7-iron in there goes 160 yards in the air. When you get on the golf course and you're 160 yards, it doesn't necessarily mean that is the correct club for you to hit. You need to factor in 3 other elements. The first major one is going to be temperature. So if it's anywhere around 75 degrees, that's about normal. So the ball should carry roughly what you did when you were inside on your TrackMan. But for every 10 degrees of warmth above 75 degrees, the ball is going to carry an additional 2 yards. And conversely, for every 10 degrees below 75 degrees, the ball is going to carry 2 yards less. People really don't account for this, especially when it's cold, how short the ball can go when it's 35, 40 degrees outside. The second one you need to think about is going to be the wind. Where's the wind? Obviously, if it's going to be downwind, the ball is going to go further. If it's into the wind, the ball will come shorter. And then lastly is going to be the lie. So if we're on a downhill lie, it's going to de-loft the club, the ball will go further. But if we're on an uphill lie, it's going to add loft, the ball's going to go a little bit shorter. So you need to factor all those elements in, but this is going to help you understand the right club selection going into the greens. And then my last comment will be in those pro-ams when I'm playing with folks, almost everybody lets their ego get in the way and they don't take enough club when they're going into the green. I don't care what your playing partners are hitting. You need to focus on what you have written down for how far the ball goes for you. And if it's a 5-iron from 130 yards, that's all that matters. Focus on that. Don't try to club down to look cool. Leave your ego at the door and pick the correct club. Now, what's second? It's proper alignment. Research shows that 80% of offline shots come from misalignment at address. When we set up to the golf ball, we want our knees, hips, and shoulders all to be parallel left to our target line. So if you envision a railroad track where if we're looking at it, the right one is going to be the target line, and then the left track is going to be where our feet, knees, hips, and shoulders are all going to be lined up parallel left. Now, you need to practice this, and you can do that on the driving range. So as you're hitting golf balls, put a stick, a golf club, or even an umbrella on the ground between your feet and the golf club, and that's going to help train you to be parallel left and get you into a great setup position. In summary, the two most simple things that you can focus on to enable you to break 100. First one is club selection. Once you understand how far the golf ball is going to go with each of your clubs and you pick the right club, leaving your ego at the door, and you also get into a very good setup position with the proper alignment, you're going to put yourself in the best position to break 100. There are many other factors that we can think about to encourage us to break that big milestone. And the first one's really going to be playing from the correct tees. I've experienced this personally in a couple of different ways. First, I've played professionally for 8 years, traveling and competing week in and week out. Now I don't do that anymore. And I've had to move up a tee box. And now I enjoy the game a lot more by moving up a tee box. And I really encourage you to do the same. Golf course architects are designing golf courses to put trouble in specific places based on how far golfers are hitting it, based on their level of play. So if you're shooting roughly around 100, when you get to the golf course, you need to be playing from roughly 6,000 yards or 5,500 meters. I'll also say you can experiment with going up much, much further and even playing from the women's tee or the very front tee, because part of the obstacle we have here when we're trying to break milestones as a game is getting comfortable mentally with being at a lower score than we typically are used to being. We're getting out of our comfort zone, and you need to be able to manage that. Now, personally, I grew up on a golf course, a great golf course in Virginia Beach, Virginia, but it was pretty short. It was only 6,000 yards from the very back tees, and I had to get used to shooting very low scores. Now, looking back on my career, it really helped me because I had to get comfortable being 6, 7 under par early in the round, and it doesn't really faze me. It's always been a strength of mine to be able to shoot low scores. So if you just want to flip the script, go play from those 4 tees with your friends, you'd be surprised at what score you'll shoot and how comfortable you can be at those lower scores relative to par. Distance control on the putting green. Now, this is extremely vital for you when you're trying to break 100, because most of us get caught up in the actual reading of the putt, which way it's going to break, but you need to be focused more on, is it uphill, is it downhill, and dialing in your speed. We can't be having 3 putts and what we would call an unforced error. Now, even the best players in the world focus on this, and you need to as well, specifically before the round when you get on the putting green. Don't try to be holing putts. Hit some longer putts, get a feel for how the greens are rolling that specific day, and really dial in your distance control and let it be your focus when you get on the greens throughout the day. Hole strategy, and what's really helped me is thinking about the hole, playing it backwards. Now, these days, fortunately, a lot of the golf carts we play with have GPS on them, so you can see the hole, see where the flag is, and if not, maybe you'll have a scorecard or even just a picture of the hole on that scorecard. And think about it backwards. How long is the hole? Where's the hole location? Maybe it's in the front on a short par 4. From there, you don't want to push it too close to the green because you're not going to be able to put spin on the ball. So in that example, you want to lay back off the tee to have a fuller shot into the green. But it's certainly helped me in my game to really think further ahead. It's almost like you're playing chess. You're thinking about that next move from a strategic standpoint before you hit the shot in front of you, and it's really going to help you make the best decisions from a strategy perspective. Think through the clubs that you carry in your bag. First of all, make sure you have 14 clubs. I have friends that don't play with 14. The rules of golf enable you to have them, so I would just encourage you to have all 14. And from there, there's a couple tweaks you can think about. I like folks that are higher handicaps to have fairway metals that have more loft. So 3-wood off of the deck, off of a fairway is really hard to hit, but a 5-wood, 7-wood are much easier. So I would encourage you to use more of those. You've even seen tour players use more of those. Adam Scott a few weeks ago put a 7-wood in at Torrey Pines, made a huge difference in his game. The other one to think about is the number of wedges in your bag. I play with 4 wedges, which is quite a lot, but I think you can experiment with that as well, as it will give you more versatile options around the green and help you lower your scores. Develop a punch shot, which is going to be a 3/4 swing where the ball comes in lower, it just pushes the ball forward. This is going to be extremely helpful in windy conditions, or if you hit the ball in the trees, you got to keep it under a tree as you punch your way out, but a really versatile shot that all very good players have. in their repertoire, it's definitely going to be a big advantage for you. Layup shots on par 4s and par 5s. The old adage is it's easy to fall asleep on these shots. I'm just going to lay it up there, and a lot of times you'll see even the best players in the world hit terrible layup shots because they're trying to do too much. So you have to stay focused on these. And we talked about playing the hole backwards. Break it out and understand where you feel is a good yardage for you with your wedges. Personally, I love 70 yards, so I'm always trying to lay up to 70 yards. Maybe for you, it's a different one, but break out that yardage and try to get yourself to that favorite number, and then stay focused. Make sure you're making a good committed swing, even when you're laying up. Don't fall asleep and put yourself in trouble, which is another unforced error. Have to deal with pressure, as we've talked about. When you're trying to break these milestones, you're gonna be at a score that you're typically not used to, and we all know in our subconscious where we lie relative to par, and we have some great videos on dealing with pressure, but real quickly, just want to remind you to embrace that. The last thing that we need to be doing is thinking it's a bad thing. Anxiety and pressure is bad. You can hit great shots under pressure. I know I've won tournaments and hit some really pressure-filled shots with my hands shaking and my heart beating out of my chest, so make sure that you're embracing it. Lastly, have a short memory. That is going to serve you well in this game. We are all going to make mistakes. You will continue to make mistakes, but just forget about them. Maybe learn a small lesson from it, push it in the back burner, and move forward. And I promise you're going to have a lot of fun breaking through these score milestones.